Welcome to another episode of Agent versus Lender. And today we have with us Tate Siemer and Carl York. Tate is a real estate agent, but also has done some house flipping and apartment flipping, as well as his business partner Carl York, who has also done that same thing. So they have a great story to talk to us today about adversity and overcoming and how to overcome that adversity. And, things don't always go as planned, and you don't always come out smelling like roses at the end either. So you want to stay tuned for this story and hear what they did to keep a little bit more focused, a little more positive through all the adversity that they've had. So I'm going to let Carl and Tate take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll hear some of your story. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Ron, thanks for having us on today. We're really grateful and excited to join you and share a little bit of what we can. Hopefully it's of value to your listeners that may help people that are dealing with adversities, particularly in their business. We've had quite a bit of that in the last couple of years here in our companies. That's what we're here to share with you about. But a quick little background on us. Carl and I, personally, we've known each other for about 21 years. When I moved to Utah in 1999, Carl hired me to be a photographer for him at the Snowbird Ski Resort here in Utah, where we live. And I worked for him for a number of years doing that. And we started a couple of side businesses in photography and a couple of other things. And we've been in real estate now together for about going on 9 years, flipping houses during most of that time. The first 7 years or so, we spent pretty much exclusively flipping single family houses with moderate success, I'd say. And then as we evolved over the last 3 years or so, our model and our focus has really shifted to the multifamily space and most recently into apartments. In the meantime, in between, we have done multiple land entitlement deals in the last 2 years, where we've bought raw land and entitled in these cases, townhome lots. We've papered townhome lots on these pieces of land and then sold them to other developers and builders. We've done that a handful of times here over the last couple of years. And then we also got into 2 townhome projects, new build townhome projects in downtown Salt Lake City. They're modern, beautiful, really clean lines, tons of natural light, townhomes that we have been building for the last 2.5 years. And right there is the start of the problem, that 2.5 year mark. So yeah, we'll get into how we got to here, where we are now. We literally are finishing up building the last of, there's a total of 6 townhomes, right? So there's 2 developments, 3 townhomes at one development, 3 townhomes at another development. The first one is done. We've sold 2 of the units, and the other unit is still for sale. And we're almost out of that, thankfully, and you'll hear the saga behind it in a minute. And then the second project, we're literally finishing up construction right now, or cleaners and touch up paint and all that stuff, and going to be listing them probably next week.
Yeah, Carl, a lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, flipping homes and flipping apartment buildings, like that. What a great way to make money!" And that's like you're always. I've heard people say you always make money on this stuff, but it's not always the case.
No, it's not the case, and it's an investment, and if it was a sure thing, everybody would do it, right? And so there's risk in any investment. What we found, and this will be one of the biggest takeaways that I'll encourage your listeners to take, is that there's this huge thing called construction risk that we really weren't in tune with. And basically what I mean by that is the second you physically break ground on a project, there are a million moving parts, and there's so many different things that can start to go sideways right away. And that's what we found with both of these projects is if you have the wrong people in place, and the wrong builder in place, in this case, things can go sideways really quickly, really, I mean, even before breaking ground. But once you do break ground and you've got a product that's, that's being built and in process, and you've got dozens of subs and whatnot taking place, if that's not all being really well coordinated, the amount of risk that you take on at that point as owners is huge. It's huge. So, and we learned the hard way over and over and over again with both of these, how much risk there is in breaking ground and construction. So,
and bringing something else, you said earlier, Tate, that it starts before you break ground sometimes, and taking it back to the beginning of one of these two townhomes, one of the problems was buying a project and being told we would have the stamped plans ready at purchase. Well, it turned out when we purchased this lot that the plans were not stamped and they weren't done. We didn't get the stamped plans for another month and a half. That was the very first thing that happened on one of these two projects. And then the second thing that happened on that one was that once we got the stamped plans, we were working away at things. Actually, this happened before the stamped plans. Our contractor did not get ahead of schedule and get into contact with the gas company to shut the gas off. We couldn't demolish the house on this lot because the gas company hadn't physically cut the line and capped it. And when our contractor said, "Oh, we've got to wait," I said, "Well, how long?" Well, they're saying 6 to 8 weeks. Well, what is waiting 2 months do to your bottom line to even just start a project? That's even just tearing the house down. So we had some adversity from square one, and then it continued on from there. So sometimes it happens before you even get going.
The worst part of the process, as far as where I can really point a finger to things going really horribly wrong, is in who we chose to hire as a builder. Well, actually, let's say this: the first thing that went wrong was us doing these deals to begin with, quite frankly, and we'll talk about that. And it's okay to admit when you've done something that you shouldn't have done, right?
Well, when you say doing these deals, are you talking about just building in general, or are you just saying you just got into this was just the wrong deal?
Well, yeah, they ended up being the wrong deal. And here's why in a nutshell. So along with the plans, the land, the recommendations and everything else, we were given a builder recommendation by this developer, and we were given a budget for the building of the project by this developer. And it turns out that we didn't have the background and kind of chops that we needed to really vet both of those things as well as we should have. Because at the end of the day, what was wrong with these deals to start was that the buildings were way too expensive to build per square foot. And that wasn't reflected in the in the budget that we were given. And that really, really hurt. And I'm talking probably between 30 and 40% difference between what the buildings actually cost to build and what we were told that they would cost to build. And
for one of these projects, I'll just add this in. For one of these projects, the main reason that the building was so expensive to build is because it was in a historic landmark district, which we were aware of, but we were not aware that you could not change the plans at all. And so it called for very high end, very expensive windows. We were trying to get our budget down because the builder really deflated the budget to get the job. And then we cut these expensive windows out, but then we had to go replace them with the ones in the plans because they were not the right windows.
So you paid for windows twice.
We paid for windows twice. So that's another thing to vet is historic landmark districts. There, we assume that, oh, well, the historic landmark must just apply to the historic side of it. This new build project here, we're going to build this. There's the plans. Let's make a few adjustments. Well, that doesn't go over very well. And so that hit us. So, lots of unforeseens for sure.
Yeah, we had a past podcast with Jeremy Peterson, and he talked about historic homes. He's like, yeah, he's up in the Ogden area, and he talked about historic homes and historic landmarks and some of the things you have to be careful of. So, yeah, the historic districts are very, very careful and very picky about what you do.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you just don't mess with what they approve of. You can't change your plans when it's taken a year and a half to get approved plans. It's very difficult to get them to get their heads around anything else. And especially when you just went ahead and built something totally different than what they approved. We tried to get them to, so yeah, like Carl said, in a nutshell, we didn't put the right windows in the building that were called for in the plans and it wasn't just the material, it was the sizes. So we changed sizes and the commission just at the end of the day wouldn't go for it. We had multiple presentations in front of them where I'm giving PowerPoints on why they should accept our plans as is and our building as is. And we went to an appeals hearing in front of an appellate officer and lost there. And, at the end of the day, those processes took 8-9 months, so we didn't know whether.
Have you even broken ground yet with all that done?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So this was like into the process of building. We decided.
Oh, yeah, because you had already replaced windows. So
right. Our builders that we hired that ended up, and I'll get back to them in a second. They were the ones that kind of talked us into this idea of changing windows and saving money in the budget. And mostly because their budget wasn't accurate. Yeah.
Sorry, mostly because their budget wasn't accurate. So they had to find a saving for us.
Right. Sure. Right. So exactly. So, really, like, aside from doing the deal to begin with, the worst thing that we did was hire the builders that we hired. And at the end of the day, we ended up having to fire them for multiple reasons. They were kind of like the worst combination and anybody that knows me well will be surprised to hear me talk this badly about somebody, but it's really the truth of the story is that they were a combination of dishonest and absent from the job, incompetent, had never really done anything to this degree before. They'd built single family houses, but nothing like this. And just malintended, quite frankly. So
it sounds like that there was lots of problems that were going on, but really what a lot of it comes down to is that, to be quite frankly, you guys probably didn't vet these people very well. And so
absolutely
you were working with wrong
exactly
people, and that comes down to basic rookie mistakes, right?
Totally. Yeah. It's a huge rookie mistake. What we did was we decided that if these deals were worth doing, they were going to be worth doing because we could trust the guy that we were buying them from. Right. And we figured that either what he was telling us and showing us and pitching to us was good and true, or we were, quite frankly, screwed at the end of the day to begin with. And that's what ended up happening. It was a trust but verify situation for sure. We did vet the builder. We went and saw some of the work that they've done, but they had never done anything like this. So we didn't have anything to show for what they could and couldn't do here with this piece.
So tell us about some more of the adversity things. So you have the builder realizing you have the wrong builder. You have
Yeah.
windows that you've had to pay for 2 sets of windows, one that were a little cheaper, and then you end up with this expensive one. You have historic landmark people that you're dealing with that won't let you change anything. What else?
Well, and not only that, not make it letting us change anything, but actually de facto making us go back and change 50
Yeah,
windows
right.
out of a building that cost $250,000 at the end of the
Sure.
day to do. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is truly a situation where we made numerous mistakes, and a couple of them pretty fatal mistakes, because we'll get to this more in a bit, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, we're hoping to maybe break even on the first project that we've sold 2 units for, but probably not. And the other project that's still in construct, or basically about to list, kind of same scenario. And in reality, I mean, there's a very real chance that we'll lose multiple 6 figures between the 2 of them. There's also a real chance that it won't be quite that bad. And we may be getting some help from our developer friend. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so there's several things that you've said here that are
Yeah.
actually really important. So at the end of the day, you're evaluating what went wrong so that you can learn from it, so you don't make that mistake again. And that's really, they call that the school of hard knocks, and it's an expensive school to go to.
Yep.
But it's really important that you do that. And unfortunately, you have like apartment buildings, and you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And most of us, at the end of the day, we're talking about Facebook marketing, or we're talking about the ML, Zillow marketing, or you're talking about something that we're talking about hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But even so, it's really important to evaluate what's going wrong so that it doesn't happen again. At the end of the day, you have to take responsibility, because the buck stops with those that are in charge. And even though that maybe you got in over your head, it still stops there. And so even in our business as a realtor or as a loan officer, we each have our own business, and it stops here. And if we don't evaluate on a daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis, at least monthly, then we could be losing money and just not realizing that the return on investment just isn't there. And so we have to tweak something. And the consequences of that are that we're losing money that maybe we could have maybe mitigated at some point, maybe earlier in the process. So what I want to hear is, because I really want to get to how you guys dealt with this adversity. So take me really quick through all the different things that you guys had to deal with, because I know there's a lot of them. And, so I kind of want to really quick just go through those. And then I want to delve into, because I think you guys probably dealt with each, because you're different people. So I'm sure you dealt with it, and maybe one dealt with it better than the other. But how do you guys deal with the prospect of losing that kind of money, and how do you keep going? So that's kind of what I want to talk about.
It's tough. It's tough dealing with an adversity like that. It's interesting, as you said, one of you dealt with it better than the other. A clear picture came into my mind that Tate handled it a lot better than I did. And I'm not afraid to say it. But yeah, one of the many adversities that we had was firing our GC. So you've got a contractor on the job doing their thing, and to fire one and bring another one in, sometimes you're talking about lawsuits, and we had to deal with that. So this contractor thought that they had the right to sue us for the money that they would have made had they finished the job. and which wasn't the case. But we had to hire another contractor, and in the meantime, we had to switch the bank loan. We realized that we were quickly approaching being out of money on the job because the first loan we got was based on a faulty budget. So that faulty number being so low, we fired our contractor, had to go get another loan. Well, that adds it's like starting your entire job again. You got to get a contractor up to speed, and you got to get a bank in there, and you got to get everybody merged again. So we doubled our workload. In the meantime, somebody has to run the job site and make sure things keep going. So in our business, that's mainly my position, is to be down on the job site as much as possible. So dealing with it was very difficult because you've got subcontractors who were working for somebody else, but now they're working for me in the interim until we find the new GC. So it got very complicated for about 3 or 4 months while we were jumping through all these hoops to get a job, to keep a job going while we were shifting everything. So you got all these moving parts, but then you put them inside another box that's got all these moving.
Yeah, totally. What Carl was saying is, there was a period of probably 6 months where it felt like literally every week we were turning around and getting slapped in the face with some huge, just new piece of adversity that we didn't see coming. And like Carl said, it really did start from day one. The first project, we broke ground and we found a foundation that we didn't know was below the ground, about 15, 20 feet down, that we needed to remove. That put our budget back 50 grand right out of the gate. So, that's not a great place to start. And it really seemed to go that way with bad news for a long period of time. And we really we had some things happen there that, let's just say there's some things that actually happened on the job site that I won't bring to the podcast because they were like dark. but it was almost there was a feeling with that one for a while, like we were up against some sort of curse or something like that. Not that I even believe in stuff like that, but necessarily, but there was definitely an energy, like it was like we were swimming upstream as hard as we could and fighting as hard as we could. Especially once we realized how bad a situation we were in with that first contractor. That was when we really had to jump in and start swimming really, really hard. And it was like the ship was so far off course at that point in so many different ways, from the GC on down through the subs and the bank. And we had a horrible relationship with the first bank that we worked with. It couldn't have been more difficult. There was adversity there wasn't a single easy part of that particular job for the majority of it. We've had some things go pretty well, I think, during the sales and disposition of them. They've gone pretty smoothly, and we've gotten more than we thought we would get for them. Two of the three townhomes that we've sold have sold for over $1 million in downtown Salt Lake. That's pretty close to a record. So we're building beautiful homes, and they're, getting a ton of attention and that sort of thing. But we're unfortunately not doing it to the tune of a whole lot of profit.
Yeah, there was definitely some satisfaction in the finished product. When you talk about, okay, there's adversity, but out of every adversity comes something good, and we created these wonderful pieces of real estate. And the other thing that I wanted to add in there that happened that helped is that, 2 years into a pretty booming real estate cycle, and that has propelled those prices higher. We're getting $100,000 to $150,000 more per unit than we originally expected. That gives you an idea of how much we lost, because we're still probably going to lose some money. Right. So, but having that being buoyed up a little bit at the end by the market has definitely been a boom.
Hey, Ron, real quick to just answer one of the questions you just asked, as far as how I dealt with it personally,
That's what I
like
was
I've
just going to get
said
to
to
is
many
like, I
people,
want to
this is,
know how you guys are dealing. So, at the beginning, you can less like, oh crap, but at some point it's got to be start messing with your head.
oh yeah, hugely. So basically, I've said to people many times to many different people that this is the hardest thing I've ever dealt with professionally. Like it's hands down the hardest thing I've ever been through as a business person, as an entrepreneur, certainly in real estate. And that's saying a lot. We've had some other projects that have been very challenging and have had a lot of adversity. I think whenever you're in the spec business, which is flipping houses or building new houses, you're gonna wind up with a lot of adversity, and it's just the way that it is. So as far as how I dealt with it personally, like the the best thing for me, and this is truly like I mean this with my whole heart, like the best thing that's come out of this for me is that it's like showed me what I'm made of, as far as resilience and stamina and mental mindset chops. And it's taken every bit of like any personal development work that I've done, whether it's coaching or professional education, like landmark education, or things that I've learned from books and personal development books. It really, like all my tools, it took everything to deal with the super, super dark days and weeks and months. And there was a lot of that. And it becomes this thing that's just always hanging over your head, no matter where you are, or what you're doing. You can be at a party and all of a sudden these things will pop into your head, and you can just feel your vibration shift, and you can feel your heart sink when you think about them sometimes, and you got to manage that and you got to deal with that. And so to me, like, you talked earlier about taking responsibility and personal responsibility. Like that's emotional intelligence 101, as far as I'm concerned. Like being responsible and treating everything that's going on in your immediate world as your responsibility, including your emotional world. That is, like I say, emotional intelligence, or emotional maturity. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur and take risks at any level, but especially if you're going to play big, which we do play big, you have to have a tolerance. And this definitely showed us the limits of our tolerance, our tolerance for pain, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And tolerance for risk as well.
Yeah.
You get into these deals and you're weighing your risks, and we really didn't have a firm grasp on our risks.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just figured I'd add that.
So what have you learned from this? I mean, you've got, I mean, I can go into so many different directions with this.
Right.
What have you learned from this experience? What in your personal life, in your business life, what have you learned?
Well, for me, again, it's been as much learning about myself and kind of like showing, like almost like holding a mirror up to myself to show me what I've got and what I don't have. Like when you're pushed to your limits, you know what you've got and what you don't. And those are both good things to know. So to me, I've used it as a piece of personal development leverage, quite frankly. Like, I'm just committed to taking whatever positives I can away from it. So I would say that as far, you're right, this could go a lot of different directions, because you can talk about what you've learned from a developer standpoint, or what you've learned from, an entrepreneurial standpoint, or what you've learned from a personal standpoint. But to me, I think
I would rather learn on like personal, because I think that's where most people are at. It's just like you're a developer and flipping big houses, but some of us aren't doing that. But we still have these challenges, and it messes with our head. So how do you, I want Tate, so I want you to tell me, and then I want to hear from Carl, because I know that Carl said that he didn't deal with it as well. And so I kind of want to talk to him a little bit about that too.
Sure. Yeah. I guess, and there were times that I didn't deal with it well too. You know, I look at myself as a leader, and as a leader, you have to be on your A game most, if not all the time. But being on your A game when you're getting your ass kicked means showing up in a way that you're not a victim, that you are basically doing what you can with what you have, and doing the best you can with that, and moving forward. And that, you know, that's what leaders do.
But how do you do that? I know, I mean, it sounds great that, yeah, you just got to move forward, but dude, how do you do that? I mean, you can't just go, oh, Mom, I'm going to move forward.
Well, I mean, honestly, that part of it is that, so here's probably the biggest another big takeaway. I'm glad you asked that question. Is I really stayed focused on the front of the business, meaning that I kept looking for deals. I was in Oklahoma City and San Antonio, in Michigan, like looking at apartment buildings, Albuquerque, making offers, negotiating, getting partners together, putting other deals together. Carl was involved in all of that too. And he traveled some and was a huge part of making those deals happen. But my day to day was much more focused on the front end of the business and where we were headed, as opposed to this mess that we were in currently. And, you know, to Carl's credit, Carl has dealt with so much more of the day-to-day ins and outs of these two projects than me, as far as, you know, relationships with our subs, relationships with our current GC, who's turned out to be very disappointing as well, unfortunately. But, you know, again, Carl's been just an incredibly strong, powerful guy through the whole thing. He's definitely had his moments, for sure. But
I'll get into that for sure.
You know, and I'd say this, like I'm 47, and I feel like somewhere around age 41 or 42, I really grew up, and meaning that I like kind of got a grasp on like my own BS and like the hangups that I might have had in my life. And I mean, I still have stuff for sure, but largely, like if this had happened before that process, it would have killed me. Like I cannot imagine having survived, like how I would have survived. I don't mean like maybe literally killed me, but it would have significantly derailed me, and I wouldn't be where we are right now. You know,
so here's my takeaway from this. Takeaway, and it's actually really important, and this applies to everybody that's in business. It's like, you guys are getting your butt kicked. Things are not going right from start, and you haven't even finished yet, and you're still having issues. But I asked how you keep going, and what you said is you keep finding deals. And the problem that most of us have is like we get stuck. So I'm going to take this back to the real estate side and or the mortgage side. Either way, we get stuck on one deal that is like really hard, and we kind of get stuck, and we're trying to work that one and work that one and work that one. And somebody maybe has some credit issues, or they went and bought a car, or, you know, there's some problems that come up, and it's like killing this deal. And instead of just going forward and finding some more deals, like we get stuck on that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't solve that. I have a team that they solve that stuff. But sometimes I get sucked back into those, and they're trying to say, Ron, get out of my way and let us solve it, which is why I love my team. But but it's really important to know that to get past some of these issues, you got to still move forward in your business, and finding more deals is like huge therapy. So like you're stuck on this one and you're trying to get this one closed, but there's 6 more out there that are waiting for you to come and get them. See what I mean? So if you spend 100% of your energy on this one that's sucking the life out of you, and you're not going out and getting the rest of them, then you're never going to get that light back in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, that makes total sense. It's you got it. Like there's 2 takeaways there that I see. Number one is it's like momentum is your friend, you know, and there's the whole analogy of how much it takes, at least half the fuel that an airplane has just in the first minute of flight or whatever, just to get it off the ground. Like if you let, another way of looking at it is if you're a mountain biker or a Jeeper or whatever, if you let that one rock that really stop you, then you got to regain that momentum again from square one. And so the best thing that you can do, in my opinion, is keep your feet moving and finding new business, finding volume's your friend. Like, you know, the more deals you have, the more deals you can mess up. I have a friend that lost money on 40 deals, but he's done 400 deals in his life. So he's losing money on 10% of his deals. That's about how it goes. Or in general, I think. So yeah. But it really is all about mindset. I mean, we could have, we in the meantime, one thing we didn't talk about is we flipped a 12-unit apartment building, and that's how we got into apartments. And we're now in a 20-unit up in Clearfield, Utah, and moving forward with it and renovating it. And then we're doing a land entitlement deal that's part of it as well. And, you know, if I had the mindset that we were like a failed development company, or failed house flippers that went big and crashed and whatever, and, you know, and that was it, like we never would be in where we are now, and in the current deals that we're in, and even a couple of the ones that we've done and since gotten out of. So yeah, staying busy and really tending to mindset. And, you know, we use gratitude techniques here in our company. We'll journal, write down lists of affirmations. We do vision boards. You know, we kind of bring all of the tools that I've learned and continue to learn over the course of my searching and learning, and try to really like employ the magic and power that is behind having your mindset right, you know, knowing who you are, knowing what you're about, having a clear mission, having a clear purpose in the world, and having a plan of attack and executing on it, showing up every day. And it's every single day. It's wax on, wax off. And, you know, it's work. So but you just keep working. And I think that's, you know, and it's at some level too, we just didn't really have a choice. You know, you just got to keep going.
Yeah, you do. You know? Just like you said, if you don't keep your feet moving, then you just basically throw your hands up and go, I'm just going to go do something else. I can't do this anymore. But when in reality you can, it's just like, this one may not make you a lot of money, but your other ones are. The other ones are going to make you money. But if you evaluate, we go back to what we said at the very beginning is, you're evaluating where you're at and what you learned, then hopefully you can apply those things to the next one. Carl, so tell us a little bit about, you know, you have mentioned that maybe you didn't handle it as well, or you took a different approach. And so what was going through your head and how did you handle it?
Well, I think a lot of it just kind of came down to my position in the company, which was, you know, dealing with contractors, dealing with subcontractors, dealing with the transition of one GC to another. It was so intense because there was a lot of, billing issues. I do all the book work for these two jobs. So I was the guy giving out checks. I was having to try to get contractors back who hadn't finished their jobs, or if a contractor got paid but they'd made some mistakes, trying to get them back. So I was on the ground trying to manage all this stuff. And like Tate said before, it's like, it wasn't even necessarily weekly. It was like daily. It was like coming in and walking into a boxing ring every day, and just knowing that you're going to get beat up. You're going to end the day with a black eye. And it was literally like, I felt for a while I was trudging into work already beat up before I even got there. So what I had to do, and Tate helped me with a lot of this because he was a little bit more, tuned into the mindset stuff before I was. And it was a lot of getting into a routine where I was supporting myself in the morning, getting up, working out, doing some meditation, possibly some journaling, spending time getting into myself before I got into that boxing ring or had to put my armor on, and supporting myself in the only way that I could. Tate and I are fortunate enough to be partners in a yoga studio. So I was going 2-3 days a week to a 6 a.m. yoga class, getting grounded before I went in and to the fight every day. And that's what it felt like. It felt like a fight. And it's really only been the last couple months since we've sold the 2 of the units in the historic landmark building that things have really lightened up. We just really, I kind of didn't know what was coming every day because of the Landmark Commission and other things. So it was really just, getting that mindset, staying true to it. And I have to say, it was a roller coaster. The weeks where I didn't get up and do those things for myself were the weeks where I was really struggling. And so, like Tate said, keep the engine running. Tate was pushing the business forward while I was like just moving these rocks along. and so it's been great because we have had other projects to at least put other energies into and not be always in the project that's just horrendous and sapping your time and money. So having Tate pushing the business forward while I was trying to make things happen, it became the partnership where we had to rely on each other to get all these things done. And so in the end, we're stronger because of it. We have a lot more knowledge of where we want to be, what we did do, where we don't want to be. We don't like the risk involved of new build. So we will stay in multifamily, or we will still flip some high-end properties here and there that have nice margins in them, the land entitlement deals. We've really honed in on what we really like to do. And that's the important thing. I mean, you got to try a lot of things. In 1 year, we had 2 land entitlement deals, the 2 townhomes, and the 12-unit apartment that we flipped. All that came to be in existence within 12 months. And then we'd got the land entitlement deals done. We flipped the apartment successfully. We were very happy with that. It was a beautiful project at the end. And here we are still getting rid of these 2 behemoths. But you have to be able to take a hit here and there to understand what it feels like and understand how to avoid it. Vetting people, right. Now we're into vetting our property managers. We're having really good experience now because we're really a lot more careful in our vetting. So when you look at it like that, we've set ourselves up. We've got all of this adversity out of the way and learn from it. Now it's really just going to open up because we can avoid things that we know how to avoid. And we're in a place where we have experience. So that's really the bright note at the end, is that we're getting out of these projects. We have a clear focus and we're moving forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah. If I could just highlight real quick one thing or theme Carl hit on there for a while was self-care. Like, if you're not taking care of yourself in hard times, and by that I mean eating well, like really eating well, exercising, drinking a lot of water. I'm big on like spinal care, like whether that's yoga or whatever, just like taking care of your body so that it's working the best that it can. Your brain is going to respond better. You're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have more confidence. And then just in general, just taking care of yourself, pampering yourself here and there, and I just bought a mountain bike. So, and it was because we basically closed a deal, and it's to me, that's like an act of self-nurturing and self-care. And luckily enough, I was able to do that. But I think that any of your listeners, your agents and your lenders are going to be running up against days that they're just not feeling on their game. And I think you can really look to that. Like, and quality of sleep is huge too. So that's another one where I think Carl's had some sleep challenges in the past. And I think that put him in a position.
I can't blame him. I mean, with all these things going on, it was just like,
yeah,
been able to sleep. That would have just thrown me.
It's an art. Taking care of a human being and you taking care of yourself is an art, and it's so key to being an entrepreneur. Being healthy and being energetic is key. And success, I think, is determined by the standards that you set in your life. And I think, for us, we're very intentional about that in particular. Things like just being on time, punctuality, just little standard, things like that. Showing up we have branded clothing and our company gear, and when we show up at a property and uniform, so to speak, it just garners a little different level of respect. And I think that you reflect that when you go into into a situation. How you dress is huge, and all that stuff. So anyway, that's for me been another big takeaway, is just the value of self-care, the necessity of self-care. It's crucial especially when you're really up against it.
That's a great summary. I think when the chips are down, a lot of people start forgetting about themselves. And that's when it's really almost more important, is to remember yourself. I think service and getting into other things is really important and moving forward, but don't forget about yourself. And I think that probably helps. I know it helps me when, I get out and do some water skiing, or I go out and do something just to get my mind off of where I'm at today, just because that helps me refocus, or first thing in the morning, do a little quick workout. So anyway, any final thoughts?
To me, I guess the only other thought that I'd have is the importance of being in the boat that you're in with the right people, and Carl and I are lucky enough to have a partnership that there's kind of just a natural friendship that we've always had between us. And we don't get hung up on petty stuff generally. And we just treat each other with respect and goodwill. And those are, like, I think it's really unusual for partnerships to work in general. I think that's a pretty unusual thing. Most of the ones that I've seen in real estate in particular don't last very long.
Yeah.
And so I think, we feel blessed to have that partnership. And, so back to when you're up against it, like, it's your team that you have around you. I mean, you were talking about your team, Ron, and how they support you and how you just need to get out of the way and that sort of thing. We're building a team right now. We've just brought on 2 new team members ourselves, and leaning on those people that are there in your life, that are there for you, that want to be leaned on, that want to help, that want to offer advice or counsel or just a listening ear. Really, you got to utilize all your resources sometimes when the stuff's hitting the fan. It's you really got to step up, and sometimes you got to step up in a way that you've never stepped up before, and show up in the world in a way that you never have before. And I think for me, that personally, that was the biggest takeaway. Is it was just a massive period of growth, you know.
Carl, anything you want to add?
Well, just kind of to catapult off of Tate's idea there. I think, you have a team, you need to lean on your team, but as well, you've also got relationships. You'll hear a lot of people in real estate talk about, hey, this is a relationship business, and it really is. One of the things I realized, as I was working with a lot of contractors, is I built relationships with certain contractors that worked really well, and we found the people who we built a relationship and we can trust that they'll show up. You get people around you who you can say, hey, I've got this going on, will you do this for me? Yes, I will. And they show up. And these days it's very rare, especially in contracting. So you build your team, you build your relationships with those people outside your team, and those are the things that propel you forward. And you have to be very discerning about who you have on your team and who is one of your, the people that you rely on out in the field. So, build those as well as you can, and build good relationships, build rapport, and build a great team. And that will always prevail and take you through those adverse times.
Awesome.
That's helped us a bit. Yeah.
Awesome. So if somebody needs to get hold of you, is there a way that they can get hold of your group, your team, your company?
Yeah.
You?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us how we can reach you.
Website is www.glequitygroup.com. So G as in George, L as in Larry, equitygroup.com is our website. You can go there and actually sign up for our investor list if you want to start getting seeing deal opportunities by chance. If you're interested in learning more about the multifamily opportunities space, that's a whole different podcast. But we certainly could make a podcast out of talking to you guys about how and why we have made the shift into apartments, why we think that there's aspects of it that are actually lots easier than spec opportunities like flipping and building. And why there's a lot less risk in apartments than there is with single family flipping. So really, yeah, we're here to help. We're big on adding value. I have a podcast called The Apartment Guys. So you can find that podcast on Apple Podcasts or whatever server you use, The Apartment Guys. And I have basically really high level guests that are usually nationally known authors and speakers come on and talk about how they've, put 6,000 unit portfolio together. And cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So love to have anybody reach out to us anytime. We're here to help.
All right. Thank you. I want to thank Tate Siemer and Carl York for joining us today on Agent versus Lender. As always, you can find us on Apple and on multiple different Spotify and multiple different podcast hosting, or you can find us at agentversuslender.com. And you can get hold of me or my team at 801-628-7667. And if you can leave us a positive review. Of course, we love the positive 5-star reviews, but we just ask that you jump on and give us a review. And we will catch you next time on Agent versus Lender.